This is part 2 of my response of Dennis Prager's misinformation video on the differences between what a leftist is and what a liberal is, so let's get right back into it.
So, while liberals have always wanted to protect American sovereignty and borders, the left is for open borders.
I'd like to see which mainstream leftist party platform he thinks supports open borders. I say mainstream because you can't make a sweeping claim about the left if it is only the fringe that fits your description. Anyway, Obama certainly didn't support open borders. His administration swelled the number of immigration agents at the border larger than that of the Bush administration. Another leftist president, Clinton, according to the Center for Immigration Studies, held the record for the highest number of deportations in 2000, when 1,864,343 aliens were deported. Any sane person knows that in reality, the left isn't for open borders. They are for expanding the ability of immigrants to come here legally by lifting the maximum quota on immigration. Prager also seems to have forgotten about libertarians on the right, who support immigration as well. I guess he thought the black and white us versus them narrative had a better ring to it.
When the writers of Superman were liberals, Superman was a proud American whose very motto was truth, justice, and the American way. But that all changed a few years ago when left-wing writers took over the comic strip and had Superman renounce his American citizenship to be a citizen of the world.
Wow. We have an argument via Superman, and the claim all comic book writers are now unpatriotic liberals. Guess he's right. They completely got rid of Captain America. Wait, what? They didn't? Captain America is prominent among the Avengers and has multiple new movies of his own? Ah, crap.
The left has contempt for nationalism, seeing it as the road to fascism. Better that we should all be citizens of the world in a world without borders.
Again, I'd like to see his citation regarding which mainstream leftist parties he believes supports getting rid of citizenship altogether. Obviously, he didn't mention an example because he knew it would be apparent he was again grasping at fringe beliefs and not representative leftist beliefs. Like with other topics, he's playing off of the confusion of terms and acting like there's only one kind of nationalism, as if every person saw nationalism with the same definition. In reality, nationalism as in national pride, and nationalism as in ultranationalist, my country is better than every other country in every way by virtue of it being my country, are two very different things. The left supports the former, just not so much the latter. The latter is most definitely the road to fascism. Hitler's slogan could easily have been, "Make Germany great again." Same with Mussolini.
4. View of America. Liberals have always venerated America. Watch American films from the 1930s through the 1950s, and you will be watching overtly patriotic, America-celebrating films, virtually all produced, directed, and acted by liberals.
Those movies were made around the time of World War II, during an era of national struggle and constant dissemination of propaganda. Of course, movies made during that time were hyper-nationalist.
Liberals were quite aware of America's imperfections, but they agreed with Abraham Lincoln that America is the last best hope of Earth. The left, however, believes the left is the last best hope of Earth.
Lincoln didn't say America was the last best hope on Earth. The phrase, last best hope on Earth, appeared as an aspiration of what Lincoln wanted us to strive for, not as an immutable fact of nature as Prager and ultranationalist right-wingers would take it. The best hope of Earth was freedom, not America. A more robust meaning is seen when we take it into context. We know how to save the Union. The world knows we know how to save it. We, even here, hold the power and bear the responsibility. In giving freedom to the slave, we assure freedom to the free, honorable alike in what we give and what we preserve. We shall nobly save or meanly lose the last best hope of Earth. Other means may succeed. This could not fail. The way is plain, peaceful, generous, just, a way which, if followed, the world will forever applaud. So this quote dropped by Prager suggesting that America is the best in some literal and all-encompassing manner is nothing more than an appeal to emotion. A quote dropped to say, "You like this quote, right? Anyone that suggests more nuance is necessary to properly understand it is an America hater." The end.
And regards America as racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, violent, and imperialistic.
All those things are true. The opposite of all those things are also true. You see, again, America isn't just one person or one set of ideals and beliefs. It is many. There are racists, and there are extremely unprejudiced people. There are xenophobes, and there are people who welcome immigrants. Both of these things are true about America. Like with most everything, there are certainly those on the extreme fringe left who think America is these negative things overall, but the overwhelming majority doesn't believe that. The majority merely think we should acknowledge that racism and xenophobia still exist so that we can address it, rather than pretend like those things aren't a problem like Prager and his ilk often strongly imply by their words and actions. The problems have been reduced in recent decades, not completely eliminated.
5. Free speech. No one has been more committed than American liberals to the famous statement, "I wholly disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it." But the left is leading the first widespread suppression of free speech in modern American history, from the universities to the tech companies that govern the internet to almost every other institution and place of work.
This belief by the right, and many on the left even, that there is a leftist revolution against free speech is a myth. Let's start with universities. We've all heard the assertion of a wave of suppression of the right wing on campuses, from speakers to teachers. But is this really happening? The Georgetown University Free Speech Project has been tracking free speech incidents since 2016. Some of these incidents include a University of Tampa sociology teacher being fired after tweeting Hurricane Harvey was karma for Trump voters, a professor at Fresno State being fired for anti-Trump tweets, Ben Shapiro receiving pushback during a controversial talk at Marquette University, a classics professor at University of Iowa being attacked for suggesting that marble statues of antiquity were not all white, and many more. The first thing you should notice is that there are many examples of both left and right-leaning speech being potentially infringed upon, not just that of the right. Overall, there do seem to be more incidents against right-wing speakers than left-wing ones, but there is an important point to be made even there. Since 2016, the Free Speech Project has recorded only 91 free speech incidents. To put this into perspective, there are 4,583 2- and 4-year institutions in America. If we round up to 100 free speech incidents, assuming there are some that go unreported, that means there was only a 1 in 46 chance of any free speech incident in 3 years. And roughly, at best, half of those were against right-wingers, with the rest aimed at leftists or neither side. This is just information from Georgetown University. From Canada's Acadia University, scientist Jeffrey Sachs tracked the incidents of professors being terminated for political speech in America from the time period of 2015 to 2017. He found that, in fact, more leftists had been fired than right-wingers, 19 versus 6. As far as speakers being disinvited from speaking events at universities, the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education has tracked only 155 incidents of a speaker being successfully disinvited for a political reason since 2000. That is an average of 8 per year. From 2011 to 2017, there was an average of roughly 20 disinvitations per year, with the exception of 42 in 2016. A full 11 of those in 2016, though, were of self-described provocateur Milo Yiannopoulos, a person who even most on the right won't touch now after his comments on the Drunken Peasants podcast, supporting pedophilic relationships of 13-year-olds with adults. His own, that is. In fact, He was booted from speaking at the right-wing CPAC after the comments surfaced. No matter how you look at it, there is nowhere near what could be considered a tidal wave against free speech in academia, and certainly not one exclusive against the right. A few dozen occasions per year out of 4,583 is not an impending free speech apocalypse. I won't go too far into Prager's free speech claim about tech companies because this video is already getting too far off track, but I will say that it too is largely conservatives crying bloody murder about something that happens to leftists almost as often, with leftists merely not being so loud about it. If a random algorithm even grazes a right-winger, they immediately start whining about jackbooted thugs coming through their windows. What about free speech of scientists, where the federal government is actually the one inhibiting the free speech? Columbia Law School has been recording government attempts to restrict or prohibit scientific research, education, or discussion, or the publication or use of scientific information since the November 2016 election. There are 158 entries so far. Look at very many issues like this and you find that supposed free speech enthusiasts become very against the principle.
Western civilization. Liberals have always championed and sought to protect Western civilization. Liberals celebrate the West's unique moral, philosophical, artistic, musical, and literary achievements, and have taught them at virtually every university. The most revered liberal in American political history, President Franklin Roosevelt, often cited the need to protect Western civilization and even Christian civilization. Yet when President Donald Trump spoke of the need to protect Western civilization in a speech in Warsaw, the left-wing media, also known as the mainstream media, denounced him. They argue that Western civilization is no better than any other, and that Western civilization is just a euphemism for white supremacy.
Prager mentions an FDR quote about Western and Christian civilization. This hits the nail on the head with what Trump, Prager, and their fellow ethnocentrists are valuing. They believe European Christian culture is superior to all the rest, almost by virtue of being Christian and white. The criticisms of Trump's Warsaw speech weren't simply about his saying Western values have merit. The criticisms were about his speech being aimed against another group of people, the predominantly Muslim immigrants to Europe. Trump and Prager see today's situation as analogous to that of medieval Europe trying to beat back the non-white Muslim hordes from Christendom. The people criticizing Trump weren't against Western values. If Trump had praised Western values while considering welcoming immigrants in need among those values, the left would have praised Trump. But instead, Trump positioned his comments fundamentally against non-white, non-Christians, as he alludes to the forces of the South and East that threaten to undermine these values and erase the bonds of culture, faith, and tradition. Prager and Trump seem to think you can claim not to be an ethnocentric racist, all while stoking blind hatred of those not from your culture based on those very criteria. It's the same old, I'm not racist, but insert racist statement. Posturing that we've seen time and time again.
So then, if liberalism and leftism are so different, why don't liberals oppose the left? In a nutshell, because they have been taught all their lives to fear the right.
No, Dennis. It is because they know that liberalism is part of the broader left spectrum, not something fundamentally different. Moreover, unlike you, Dennis, the reasonable liberals of the left aren't nearly as willing as you to paint the left with a broad brush as if all the left were the same.
But as one of the best-known liberals in America, Harvard Law School professor Alan Dershowitz said, "As a liberal, as an American, and as a Jew, I far more fear the left than the right."
What? No way. Wow. Prager was able to find a quote that supported his existing belief. That totally legitimizes everything he said. It is one thing if he said it, but naming one other random person who said it makes it true. I'm sold.
Dear liberals, conservatives are not your enemy. The left is. I'm Dennis Prager.
Dear Dennis Prager, entire massive groups of loosely associated people with very often disparate beliefs are not across the board the enemy. Charlatans who oversimplify, demonize, and misrepresent those groups like you do are. Let's talk about individual beliefs or positions, though, and the groups that tend to hold those beliefs. Liberals tend to be strong supporters of separation of church and state and the neutrality of government towards religion. Social conservatives, as opposed to fiscal conservatives, on the other hand, are often at the forefront of attempting to tear down that wall. Liberals tend to value ideals of the Enlightenment and accepting empirical fact over dogmatic beliefs. Social conservatives and the religious right, however, tend to be fine and even encourage rejecting science in favor of dogmatism on topics like evolution, the age of Earth, and climate change. I could go on, but I'll just end with this. Prager's argument was designed for the sole purpose of creating a straw man of what he believes the left is so that he could then imply most of the modern left, or most Democrats, fit that mold. In reality, I could do the same to Prager and his conservatives. I could say right-wingers are different from conservatives because real conservatives support fiscal responsibility. And Prager-style right-wingers always drive up the national debt and add up a bloated military budget. I could say real conservatives hold to their principles and don't vote for sexually immoral anti-free trade narcissists like Trump. I could do this, but in reality, all it is doing is trying to weaponize labels. It is attempting to delegitimize your political opponent by slapping them with a label like conservative or liberal so that you can say they are wrong because they fit that label, not because the evidence says so. Labels are useful in the sense that they give you a vocabulary to attempt to describe your position without actually having to name every single position. Using them instead to divide yourself into teams or to justify dismissing entire segments of the population without considering their viewpoints is extremely destructive. That is what Prager was trying to do with this video. He was not trying to bring a true and honest understanding of the nuances among the terms left, liberal, and conservative.